So, there's not much to do when you fly like 10 hours back from Seattle with the connecting flight in Chicago, except watch all the programs, right? That's the great thing is that, these days you can be 38,000 feet in the air and I'm watching Good Morning Football and then First Take and then the replay of, something else. So I got to see all the football shows, if you will. And, man, seeing the highlights of that game, because when you're at it, and I'm writing about it, and I'm kind of got my head, in a tunnel a little bit, because I see the plays in real time. Then I might see a replay or two. But going back and looking at this game, I don't know that I've seen Baker Mayfield throw the ball better than he did in this game. And in fact, there's not been anybody yet this year complete as that percentage of passes in a game. So clearly, that's the best percentage throws. But I'm talking about like balls down the field. And that's kind of been what I think if you look at Josh Grizzard, in addition to having to play without, half his team, I think the biggest contribution he has made is creating space, for downfield throws. It was something they didn't have a lot of explosive throws last year. And there's this next gen stats thing that says that Baker Mayfield has 23 pass attempts of 20 plus air yards, not pass plays. Almost half of those have targeted Egbuka, and he already has 53% of his 20 plus air yard attempts from last year. There's only 43 last year. He's on pace to almost double that with 78. So that's that's an obvious attempt to and this is with an offensive line that at the beginning of the season and really until recently, they went without either of their starting tackles, either of their starting guards, right? They moved the center out to tackle and Bredesen to center and all that stuff. And he still managed to get the ball down the field. His deep ball accuracy is as good as any quarterback I think I've covered when he can step into the throw, But he also throws like off platform down the field. The pass to Sterling Shepard in the end zone is obviously a broken play. Sterling's going to get probably a back shoulder throw on a fade route there, and it's covered. And Baker just kind of buys himself some time and, goes a little bit to the left. And Shepard works himself back inside. And he throws this ball across his body, rolling to his left, and it's a dart, So I don't know. Having watched him play, I guess I didn't fully appreciate when he got here how strong his arm is. But then his ability to throw on the move and still get a lot of juice on it is really something.
Well, there's a reason he was a number 1 overall draft pick. And
you're right. You're right.
And we talk about this all the time. Like when you're the number 1 overall draft pick at quarterback, you're generally going to a bad team.
Yes. The worst team.
Well, a worst team, but generally they're that way because it's not a great organization, not a great coaching staff, like not the tools and resources to set you up for success. That's typically the way it is. It's not always, but
that's correct.
And maybe they make changes on the way. But Cleveland, we know, has been, particularly at quarterback, 41 quarterbacks since they, brought the team back after, Art Modell moved the team to Baltimore. Then a couple years later, the Browns were reformed. 41 quarter, like each quarterback's averaging 10 starts. Like every 10 starts, they have a new quarterback, essentially.
That's crazy, right?
For 26, 27 years, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, that's nuts. But that's where Baker went and even got him to a playoff. Won a playoff game, correct?
Third year.
Yeah.
Beat Pittsburgh.
Yeah. But when you're with a bad organization it typically doesn't work out. And so then he goes off to Carolina, another bad organization. And halfway through the year there, they've gone through him. They've gone through Darnold. Then he's cut. He goes to L.A. just to fill in as Stafford was hurt. A good organization. And you saw within, 4 days of getting there, he goes and wins a Monday Night Football or Thursday Night Football, whatever it was.
Yeah, he had 2 days to prepare. Liam Cohen was the one that gave him the cheat codes and got him ready.
And you see him do that, and you go, I mean, he's got the talent. He's got the ability.
Yeah.
So you need to get him in the right situation. And that's so much of football is the right situation, but especially quarterback. Like if you can get the right situation, Brady and Belichick were a tremendous partnership for over 20 years.
Yeah.
Mahomes and Reed are fantastic partnerships. And they're both of them were good organizations that put the talent around and set people up for success. There's a reason why in the NFL it seems like the same franchises win over and over and over again. They're well run, good coaching, etc. I mean, there's a reason the Steelers never have a losing record. May not always be the best team in football. They never stink. They're a good run organization.
Yeah,
And
continuity, I think, wins in pro sports. It really wins in the NFL. If you can have it, continuity within ownership, front office, and then if you have front office and coaching, you really got something. Of course, you got to win to stay there. So it's sort of a chicken and the egg. But yeah, those franchises that have the right culture, they have a chance to keep their coach and select the right quarterbacks and do those kinds of things. And so you don't see the big dips, when they're transitioning. I still would argue that the Steelers haven't found a replacement for Ben Roethlisberger.
I would agree.
It's,
But yet
it's,
they keep winning 9 or 10 games a year.
but they're never going to lose enough to get a top 5 pick.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be part of their
Yeah.
issue. They're going to have to find, and they've been trying to with Justin Fields and some others, but they're going to have to find their Baker Mayfield. In other words, a guy that had success, but for one reason or another, maybe the organization he was drafted up in the top 5 failed him, and then he's got a second act or a third act. I'll tell you what, too, like Sam Darnold, man, no joke, that guy was great.
Mm-hmm.
Not good, he was great too. He was just fantastic. It was really a shootout. It was fun to watch. You don't see many games like that in the NFL anymore. You used to see them a lot, but you don't see them that much. And man, it was the year that Baker is having. With what is he 10 or 11 touchdowns and just one interception?
Yep. 4-1 record, 4 comeback wins.
If he doesn't throw that interception, and that was a ball that was tipped, and if Godwin flashed open just a little bit on a broken play, we've seen Baker make a million times. But if somehow they come back and they win that game, I mean, they're 5-0, 4-1 is pretty damn good. But he had them down there, getting ready to tie it up. And they got another shot and wasn't able to score. But the way they have won, with him leading them in these improbable last second drives and winning 4 games in the final minute, which has never been done since the merger, that coupled with Josh Allen losing to the Patriots at home, in my mind, and I know they don't give out MVPs after what, 5 weeks.
Well,
If they
remember
did,
Fitzmagic had it after 2 weeks.
he did. Well, he was really good though.
He was
460 and 460. I mean, there was that, and then he put on the shirt. It was awesome. But that's why they don't give him away. But this doesn't feel like it's going to go away. It doesn't feel like. I mean, there always could be more injuries and things happen, right? But they're likely to get guys back at some point, or so you would hope. I can't imagine what this team would do if they had Jalen McMillan and Mike Evans and Emeka Egbuka, and Chris Godwin. I mean, that would be very similar in my opinion to kind of what Tom Brady was working with his Super Bowl year when he got Antonio Brown as that third receiver. But they could get Luke Gedeke back, and they could have 4 of their 5 offensive linemen together. Obviously, Cody Mauch's out for the year. But for them to do this with this cast, with this revolving cast of characters, and for Baker to more or less in the final minute of each game put him on their back and take him down there, yeah, he's the MVP. And I'm not trying to be a homer here, but I listened to a lot of arguments about, it's awfully early and no one's going to give this out after 5 weeks. But I think with, coupled with Josh Allen losing that game, there's no one playing. Let's put it this way: no one's more important to their team than number 6 is to this one. No quarter. I mean, you could say Mahomes. You could say Josh Allen, right? You can say the same thing about Baker. He's right there as far as the importance to this club. And there's a lot of quarterbacks probably in that realm, but the way he's playing, like they don't win these games without him putting on a cape, ducking into a phone booth and then coming out, and just taking them down the field and scoring these last second drives. And to do it with a cast, a lot of quarterbacks and players in general get pretty down when their stars are out, I mean, there is a woe is me factor sometimes in this game, and you can see it. It's palatable. I've seen it before. You don't see that with Mayfield. You really don't. And I think the rookie gets a ton of credit, and we can talk about him in a minute because I think he's, if Baker's the MVP, Emeka Egbuka is the rookie of the year right now. So think about that for a second. But it really has been something to watch. Like I've tried, I had a lot of hours on the plane and started, looking at different, tapes and sort of the highlight shows and the people that break down film for a living and stuff like that. None of this is by accident. And I would say this too. Last year Baker Mayfield led the NFL in interceptions. He had 18. And he told me this in training camp, and he made no secret about it. Is like, I have got to take care of the football. I have got to get it out of my hands faster. I've got to be and he very intentionally worked on good decisions, more accuracy, all these things. And when you see those intentions throughout the offseason turn into what he is now, which is what, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception, does that sound right? And the 1 interception probably most likely got him beat in that game. But like, that's not by accident. That's Baker Mayfield very deliberately going into this offseason and having some continuity of the system for the first time, in a long time, because even though they have new play caller in Josh Grisard, at least is the carryover from the system from last year. That's him willing himself, making sure he protects the ball better. And he's had a couple balls come out of his hand, fumbles and things like that, which was not good. And he's got to be careful with that because he has a lot of bodies around him very often. But I think you see the work that he's put in, and the fact that he's at home and he knows these players and he's not guessing, and yet his best receiver is a guy that's only got here this year, only got here in early May, late April, in Emeka Egbuka. So I don't know, just really impressed with Baker, and I don't want, this doesn't have to be his fan club or anything, but let's be honest. I mean, this guy, was on the scrap heap of the NFL, 4 teams in 18 months. And that picture that I saw in somebody's website or on Twitter or something of him and Darnold walking off the field or walking onto the field at Carolina. Oh, man, if I'm the owner of the Carolina Panthers, I'm like, what did we do? We had both these guys in our building and we ran them both off. We couldn't find anything for either one of these guys. It's incredible.
That's David Tepper for you.
David Tepper, man. Yeah, these owners, they don't like green bananas, but they had a couple of ripe ones, and those two guys put on a show. That's as good a shootout as I've seen in a very long time. I can't remember the last time I saw quarterbacks go up and down the field that way and almost score, 7 touchdowns and 7 possessions at one point? I mean, it was insane. Who do you see do that back in the day? Marino and Elway? Some kind of Favre and Peyton Manning? I mean, Brady wasn't really a shootout guy per se. He's capable of it when he got Randy Moss. But before that, Belichick would play defense, yada, 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 take care of the ball, that stuff. That was just a good old-fashioned shootout, man. That was amazing. Literally amazing. So I got Baker as the MVP. I'm a homer. Yeah, write it down. I just don't know who's playing better. I can't. I thought Josh Allen was until he lost to the Bills. And that wasn't a very good game for him, obviously. I don't know. You don't have your Saquon Barkleys this year. Jalen Hurts has lost 1 game, but his numbers aren't great, and he can't get the ball to his outside receivers. Cooper Kupp's had a good, or not Cooper Kupp, but Puka Nakua's had a really good.
Oh, he's been tremendous.
He's been amazing for the Rams, but then now they've lost a couple games.
Yep.
That was a big loss to San Francisco, which, by the way, pertinent to almost nothing of this conversation. The 49er injuries, you think this team's injured? How in the hell are the 49ers 4-1? I mean, Brock Purdy missed 3 games.
Yep. But Mac Jones played fantastic.
And Mac Jones played great, and they won all 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
But they're without so many players.
Well, good organizations. Good
right?
coaching.
Good thank you. Coaching. Coaching matters, right? Organizations matter, but coaching matters.
Mhm.
It so matters.
Well, look at Dak Prescott's here.
Yeah.
You don't think coaching matters?
I think that guy's doing a great job. I think Schottenheimer's been amazing for him,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And they've gotten no help on defense whatsoever.
Well, they didn't help themselves by trading Parsons.
They got
but,
rid of the best defensive player, right? But yeah, no, he's lighting it up. He's lighting it up. And so yeah, I think when you think about Grizzard, the one advantage he had was he was here last year, and the system has continuity.
Mhm.
Canales didn't have that. Liam Cohen, while there's some carryover, didn't have that, right? But what those guys had that he didn't have was Tristan Wirfs every game, Luke Gedeke,
Yep.
Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan. Like, he wasn't playing. They weren't playing shorthanded the way this guy is. But if you kind of see what Grizzard does, like he's really good at creating space for these guys. You always see a lot of space for these route runners, and if Baker moves one way or the other, even if it's not an on schedule throw, there's still a lot of big windows for him to try to create.
Mm-hmm.
And he does that with motion. He does that with a lot of different ways. But he's a pretty astute young play caller at this point. Could we go 3 for 3? Could we have Josh Grizzard head coach of, I don't know, Cleveland Browns next year? I have no idea.
I don't know if a team's ever had 2 straight years offense coordinators become a head coach, but I guarantee there's never been 3.
It couldn't have been 3, right?
3 guys that have never been a coach before, too. Not like a head
Right.
coach that went back to be an OC to get another head coaching job. No, these are guys that have never been head coaches before. Like, that would be insane if that happened.
Right? I mean, you'd be running down to Tampa Bay to try to become a coordinator if that's what it takes. I mean, cradle of head coaches down here, man.
By the way,
You're not messing around.
Did you see the tweet from Jeff Darlington Sunday night?
Was that about Jason?
Yes.
I think so. It was. I know he was very supportive of him.
I'll read it, I mean, it's good stuff in here. He says, in the years after an all-in Super Bowl run with Tom Brady, what Jason Licht continues to do in Tampa Bay is so wildly impressive, symbolized through 2 very different acquisitions. He picked up Baker Mayfield for scraps, paid him early enough to get the best deal on a franchise quarterback in all of football, and more recently guaranteed his 2026 salary to keep him happy until they do their next deal.
Mm-hmm.
2, he drafted Emeka Egbuka with the 19th overall pick and adamantly predicted before the season this exact success we're seeing from him. Just 2 primary examples, but I'm not sure people realize the level of purgatory Tampa should have entered after Brady retired. Light has expedited a rebuild by acquiring talent through the draft and free agency with confidence and logic. So much respect for their process.
He's not wrong. I mean, Jason deserves a ton of credit, and as does John Spytek when he was here, and Mike Beal, and all the guys that Jason is quick to give credit to.
Absolutely.
He has built a front office that runs incredibly efficiently, and they obviously have really good scouting.
Except for outside linebackers, they haven't figured that one out. But beyond that,
yeah, I can't. It's funny, right? What's the greatest position Jason Light has ever drafted? And it's not even close.
Well, receiver, offensive line. I mean,
wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean Evans and Egbuka and Godwin. I really
His
like
first
Wirfs.
pick ever is a first ballot Hall of Famer. The next receiver he took, I don't know if in order, but basically he drafted Mike Evans and Chris Godwin.
Yep.
They're the 2 greatest receivers in franchise history. He drafted them both.
Yep.
Oh, and now comes a guy named Emeka Egbuka.
Yeah. Oh, he drafted Jalen McMillan a year before too, and he looks pretty
good. And McMillan
let me
tell you, McMillan was killing it in the preseason. Right? He was destroying people until, he got the hospital ball from Teddy Bridgewater. But he was poised to have a sort of breakout year as well. So for whatever reason, his staff, have been undeniably great drafting receivers and I would say finding offensive linemen, like not necessarily the first round picks, although Tristan Wirfs was, and they had a conviction about him because they traded, I think, up to get him with San Francisco. But he would find these guys that weren't necessarily Division I, in the case of Ali Marpet, Division III, and
Cody
he just
Mauk. I mean, Ali
yeah,
Marpet.
Cody Mauk, and yeah, he just knew, signing Ryan Jensen, who really hadn't had a chance to start much when he was a free agent with Baltimore, but he just knew how to put together an offensive line. So he's been really strong there. But outside linebacker, mm-mm. Edge rusher, nope. Those guys they signed, and the two greatest that since Jason has been here was probably Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett, and both those guys were, obviously free agents. And in case of Shaq, he came here much like Baker for a $4 million make it deal. He was a rotational player in Denver, because he had better plays in front of him. He had Von Miller and that sort of Demarcus Ware was the other one. So he couldn't get on the field as much. But for whatever reason, there's been many attempts. Just even in these last few years with Joe Tryon-Strowinka, with Chris Braswell, who you don't hear anything about. Cannot find an edge rusher. It's the damnedest thing in the world. Another thing that pops out on film when you kind of watch the replays of these games is that, man, Tristan Wirfs from week 1 to week 2, coming back off that knee surgery, what a difference. I mean, this guy, he had this one play, I think it was a touchdown run, one of the touchdown runs, I don't remember if it was the first or second one by Rachaad White, where he takes out 3 different guys. He jumps out there, he's pulling around the left side, and he literally just pushed 1, pushed 2, pushed the third guy in the end zone. Like it was the damnedest, the most athletic thing I've seen, a guy that size running that fast, leading his tailback into the end zone. And to get him back at left tackle, I mean, I also don't think it's a coincidence that Baker had his best game, because he knows he doesn't have to worry about anything on the backside coming and hitting him blind. That is such a comfort for him, that you can see how comfortable he is. But yeah, for Wirfs to do this in just his second game back, just remarkable how he's been able to hold up, and it's changed the dynamics of the team, because now Graham Barton's back at center. Now Ben Bredesen is at left guard where he belongs. I think Charlie Heck is doing an okay job, a credible enough job, holding down the fort at right tackle until Gedeke gets back. And then, of course, they got Luke Hazard, who had been around for a couple of years and never really got a chance to play. And because of some injuries and things, remember they had Michael Jordan started the season there. They brought him up from the practice squad, and then he got hurt. And now Hazard's been kind of the guy sitting in there. And, they've managed to stay pretty functional with that group. But, yeah, it's just the coaching. And you talk about coaching, the offensive line coach, Kevin Carberry, Brian Patucci, and all those guys, those are really good coaches. And every team I've been around that has won Super Bowls, right, or championships, the position coaches were not just good, they were elite. I think their offensive line coaches are elite. And obviously that's why Liam Cohen wanted to join them in Jacksonville, but the Bucs denied it, and rightfully so. Those two guys are fantastic. So they're getting good coaching. Obviously they're getting good quarterback play. And it's also a bunch of guys that kind of believe in each other. There's not really, the culture has been built, and I give Brady credit for some of that, and the Super Bowl champions that are still on this team. That came in very young players like Winfield and others. Obviously, Mike Evans is a big leader. Chris Godwin, those guys, but that culture was kind of sown. But he's right. The Bucs, by rights, after they've spent all the money on free agents for Tom Brady in the Super Bowl years, right? And they were some $80 million over the salary cap. Most teams would have been gutted and done, right? You just spent the next 3 to 5 years digging out of salary cap hell.
Well, especially
These guys,
because unlike the Saints who kept kicking it down the road, they actually took their medicine
that's right.
and said, okay, we're going to make up most of this money that we've pushed down the road now,
Yeah, exactly.
but yet still won the division, still made the playoffs.
Still made the playoffs. Yeah, incredible. And to your point earlier, they found a Baker Mayfield for $4 million. Just unreal. And at the point where his physical abilities have not deteriorated, he might be still in his prime in some respects, but the mental capacity that he has now, the ability to overcome adversity and all the different things that have happened to him, have just made him a better quarterback, a better teammate, a better player. And these guys will follow him anywhere. I mean, you can't end the season after 5 weeks, man. But if you did, show me a guy that did it better than him. And we used to measure quarterbacks on their fourth quarter comebacks. I remember those old stats they tried out about Montana and Elway. Elway known for the drive in Cleveland. So it's just a really neat story. I don't know how long it will last because I think that Baker still puts himself in too much harm's way. It is the way he plays. I get it. You're not going to coach that out of him per se. But there's a belief, and why shouldn't there be with this team? If they make the playoffs, if they win the division again and they have a home playoff game, whether it's that week, the next week they go on the road, let's say they're, I don't know, at Philly, and it comes down to a close game in the fourth quarter, there's no way these guys would blink. They've been in these situations now 4 times this year and won 5 times and won 4 out of 5 of them. Like, that's a lot of a building up of confidence in those situations. And, that's really what the playoffs are. The playoffs are usually tightly contested games, play here, play there. Somebody's got to drive to kick a field goal. Somebody's got to stop somebody from scoring a touchdown in the last few minutes. Like, that's what playoff football is. And these guys are, while they're getting better, while they're still having a new play caller, while they're still getting some guys back and got a lot of injuries, they're doing what? They're winning football games. And now, since Philadelphia lost at 4-1, they have, one of the best records in football and did it in a dramatic fashion. Did it in a way that you wouldn't draw it up necessarily, but it really shows the mental, sort of the mental fortitude. I was listening to Graham Barton was on one of the Buccaneers Access shows with Casey Phillips, and he was saying that, when they kicked him out to left tackle, he took it as a real challenge. He was kind of digged it a little bit, because it's so different than center. It was like, okay, well, I just have to worry about one thing: the beast that's going to be in front of me. Try to keep that guy off the quarterback. At center, of course, he's got to worry about everything, and that offensive line with the moving pieces they've had has done a good job of kind of spackling things together. And I don't think they get a ton of credit, but given the injuries, very few teams have 5 good offensive linemen, much less what they have had to do. And Baker has had time. I mean, Baker has had time to sit back there. Sometimes he takes too much time. He'll scramble around, he'll duck and weave and stay alive. But to have that many injuries, again, if you get those guys back, with the exception of Monk, who's hurt, this team could be a problem for a lot of teams. And I think defensively they have a chance. Obviously they're down a couple corners. Jamel Dean's out. Ben Morrison is going to be a good player. Maybe one comes back this week, but they're going to have to get healthy there at the cornerback position. But Tyke Smith has made a ton of plays. We'd love to see Chris Izzian get back and get involved. Winfield looks like Winfield. He sort of pressured that interception by Levante David, and that was interesting because it was the first, that blitz package was one that Todd Bowles have been holding back. And if you watch it, Winfield gets a hit on the quarterback just as he throws it, and it glances off Logan Hall's helmet, and then, Levante makes an unbelievable catch. So even defensively, being shorthanded at some spots, they've played really good, I think. Now, Darnold went up and down the field with them. There's no doubt about that. And talking to Todd Bowles on Monday, he said that for whatever reason, they got out of whack fundamentally. They just weren't, where they needed to be. Almost made it sound like an alignment problem in a way. But, when they needed the big stop, when the game was going to be decided, when, all your opponent needs is to get in the field goal territory, with these days is your side of the 50, they stepped up. And just a great interception by Levante, a big tip, obviously, by Hall. And then it was, game over. So, but yeah, I'm just kind of, that long flight did it for me. I had watched a lot of tape, listened to a lot of shows, and I think there's universal agreement that, Baker right now is having the best year. Egbuka is the best rookie right now. You don't give awards this time of year. I'll tell you something else that impressed me a lot the other day is that Vita Vea played a hell of a lot of snaps on defense, like way more than he's used to, and didn't look worse for wear. In fact, I talked to him after the game a little bit, just kind of casually. Um, and he's having a hell of a year. But his endurance is so much better that they're able to keep him on the football field, which is huge, which is why teams have trouble running the football. And, he's got several sacks and that kind of stuff. So that's been big too. Anyway, that's my takeaway from my 10 hours of flying again back. Man, that's a long way. There's just, unless you have a nonstop charter or something like that, there's just no good way to get to Seattle from Tampa, Florida. I want to talk about the Lightning because I'm not sure what the NHL is up to these days with the fines against the Tampa Bay Lightning. But first, get on down to Breitling Boutique at International Plaza Mall. What are you waiting for? We've been talking about this now for months, and that's because the Breitling company has been in business for about 140 years. They've been making the best Swiss watches anywhere in the world. They've been International Plaza for about 5 years. Now, you go to the center of the mall, go upstairs. That's where you're going to find the Breitling Boutique. It is a big store. You're going to go in there, spend some time, have a drink on them, learn about the beautiful timepieces, the men's watches, the Navitimeters, the chronomats. They also have watches for your wife, your girlfriend. These are sports watches. They're durable. They're absolutely stunning. And she gets to pick from just a large array of different colored wristbands. And while supplies last, and that's the key. I don't know how many they have left, but if they've got one, get on down and check out their collection of NFL team watches. They're celebrating the 104th year anniversary of the NFL. Each team, 32 watches, 32 teams. These are gorgeous chronomat watches for men. They got the color on the face, the team color on the face of the watch. They have the logo, all that. If you go to tampabay.com, you're likely to see the Buccaneers team watch. I saw one still on display in the mall not too long ago. Folks, get on down to Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. They're going to take care of you. And when you go, please let them know that you heard about it on Sports Day Tampa Bay. Right? You were telling me before this podcast, and I can't hardly believe it, that the NHL has come down with some suspensions and fines, including one on John Cooper for
That
that
is
brawl in
correct.
Florida, right?
Right. So Saturday's actions, we had fines to 2 players, and then hearings for 2 players. So Roman Schmidt, Gage Gonsalves got fines. J.J. Moser, Scott Sabrin had hearings today or Monday with the Department of Player Safety. Scott Sabrin was given 4 games. He's the one who started everything in the first couple minutes, went after Aaron Ekblad. So he gets a 4-game. J.J. Moser gets a 2-game suspension for his hit on Carter Verhaeghe.
Ouch.
And then the Lightning was fined $100,000 and John Cooper $25,000 for their actions.
So they did fine the coach, which I'm not in agreement necessarily that John should get any fine or 25 grand. But if they're going to do that, how has Florida not been fined all these years? Because talk about instigators, like in the postseason, no less.
There was a $2,000 fine in Thursday's game
Okay.
for the Panthers for one of the players. But Saturday, nothing.
Drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
I don't know. Part of me is like, I'm sure Tampa Bay is kind of tired. The players probably tired of the bullying and stuff that goes on with that Florida team. But I also think you're kind of playing into their hands. I mean, it's not the postseason, so it's not as critical if you have to take penalties or whatnot. But I don't know. That's what they want you to do. They want you to play their game.
Well, we'll see come November 15th. And that's when these 2 teams will meet for the first time.
Is that Sunrise. The first time? Not until November? Okay.
Yeah, they play 4 times this year. They'll play once in November, twice in December, and I think it's February and March.
So are these back-to-back Miami and then Tampa? Or how
no, so November 15th is in Sunrise. Then there'll be 2 of them in December. They're spread out by a week and a half. They're both near Christmas, one before, one after.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, November 15th will be when we, kind of see what happens. Now, you say you're playing into their hands, and maybe you are, and I think time will tell. But
It's going to be chippy, though.
these two were preseason games that meant nothing, so it's easy to get out of hand too, right? Like the outcome, the fact that the Lightning lost 7-0 Saturday meant nothing, and they knew that. So go ahead, take some extra power plays. Give
it
the
doesn't hurt
Panthers
you.
17 of them, because it didn't matter at the end of the day. Not saying right, just in your mindset, if you're going to either say enough's enough.
Are you standing up to the bully? Is that what that is? I guess I don't know.
Well, I mean, you look at what Florida did on Thursday. And this is what I don't understand about the hockey mentality and culture is that. So presumably this all goes back to the playoffs when Hagel had the illegal hit on Sasha Barkov.
Sure it does.
Now, intent-wise, that was not Hagel's intent. He thought Barkov had played the puck.
Right.
It was just off Barkov's stick, never touched it. And so when he hit them, and at the time I said it was a bad hit and should get suspended, and he did get suspended for one playoff game.
Right, but it wasn't malicious intent.
Right. He didn't have the intent, but, it's the playoffs, okay. So then Aaron Ekblad comes and takes an illegal check to Hagel, gives him a concussion, knocks him out of the playoffs, and Ekblad gets suspended for 2 games. Okay, so that should be it, right? I mean,
should be.
You knocked Hagel. You have a problem with Hagel. You knocked him out, gave him a concussion with an illegal check, and the league said it was because you got 2 playoff games suspended, which is more like 4 or 5 regular season games, if you want to know severity. And so it should be over. Well, so with 6 minutes into the game on Thursday night, AJ Greer runs at Hagel, cross-checks him, and he sucker punches him twice. What? Like, in what world is that okay at this point? And yet he didn't get thrown out of the game. They gave him a 17 minutes of penalties or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like the officials could have stopped it right there. Like that guy needs to go out. You're gone, which is what they started doing Saturday, but it was too late by that point.
Right.
And for all the people that say, this team's dirty, this team's dirty. The Lightning had no interest in getting involved in any of this. It was AJ Greer who started it.
Right. Well, it's not really the Lightning's game. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Like they're not a heavy team that tries to intimidate other teams.
But then the league doesn't throw that guy out and doesn't give him a suspension for that. So what are you supposed to do as the Lightning? Like, I'm not saying it's right, but like hockey deserves blame in this. The NHL lost control of that game Thursday 7 minutes in and never got it back for 2 games because of their actions. And I don't understand it. I don't understand why they're okay with star players taking cheap shots and getting hit. What Scott Sabourin did to Aaron Ekblad deserves that suspension. Absolutely. But I just don't understand the mindset of it's okay to knock players out, to take cheap shots, and we don't punish players. Like I said, what Scott Sabourin did to Aaron Ekblad, not acceptable, should be suspended. Absolutely. And several, I don't have the rose-colored glasses where it's like the Panthers are the only problem and the Lightning did nothing. No, I mean, but why is it okay in this sport to not a hockey play, cheap shots, but yet no punishment comes? Or I think Greer got a $2,000 fine. And that, because he doesn't make a lot, he doesn't get a big fine there. That's maximum allowed by the CBA. But I just don't understand where you look at the other sports like the NFL where you touch it, you breathe on a quarterback, you're going to get a 15-yard penalty.
Right.
Because they know they're the stars. Why is it okay to not in a hockey play with a player? Fine. Injuries are going to happen, etc. Why do we allow cheap shots and that kind of stuff? I don't understand that mentality, but it's been that way forever in hockey, and it probably is never going to change.
Yeah, it's such. The other thing is it's just a shame because these 2 teams are so talented, and they're going to be competing each other every year to see who goes, to the Eastern Conference Finals or advances in the playoffs or whatnot. And you don't really need this element. Like they're both so skilled and so much fun to watch. Although that's Florida's game. It's part of their game, and if you're playing them, you have to deal with it. And I think sometimes, teams get caught up trying to play the way Florida plays, and that takes them out of what they do best. So, man, it's going to be. I am ready. Thursday night is the opener, right?
That is correct. The Ottawa Senators in town at Benchmark International Arena.
How about that?
And then
Nothing like opening night, man.
they'll play the Devils on Saturday, and then they go on the road for 4.
Sweet. Well, we'll look forward to that. Hockey is back. We got the NFL football back. Jacksonville, as we wrap up this podcast, was giving Kansas City all they could take, but I've seen this act before, so I'm not going to predict anything since I don't know the outcome as you listen to this, but I've seen Patrick Mahomes in these situations. Let's see how it turns out.
Hey, he's no Baker Mayfield.
No, he's not. But then who is? Great start to Baker Mayfield. Great start for the Bucs. Get ready for San Francisco. He's got a ton of injuries as well. That should be an intriguing game this week at home. So we look forward to that. And make sure that you get on down to Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. Check out all the beautiful watches they have there. One of the best timepieces you're ever going to own is at Breitling Boutique, waiting for you or your girlfriend or your wife. Make sure when you go, you let them know that you heard about it right here on Sports Day Tampa Bay. Thanks for listening, everybody. For Steve Versnick, I'm Rick Stroud, Tampa Bay Times. Have a great day.